And we begin in Minneapolis, where outrage is growing over this week's deadly ICE shooting amid accusations that political rhetoric by far-left Democrats is making the situation a whole bunch worse. As local protests continue to grow, ICE officials are now pointing their fingers directly at squad members such as Ilhan Omar and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and accusing them of endangering their agents by overhyping the federal government's responsibility for the incident. Despite growing video evidence to the contrary, Omar, AOC, and even former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, they're all calling the tragic shooting a flat-out murder. I guess investigations aren't necessary because Judge Clinton has already made a ruling. Omar also takes it a step further by claiming that ICE is blatantly terrorizing the public, committing state-sponsored violence, and recklessly spreading fear and chaos throughout the entire area. And basically, that's code for let's get away from all the $9 billion in fraud talk and the $30 million in her bank account nonsense. Yes, well done. For his part, ICE's acting director now says the entire incident could have been avoided entirely if local authorities simply agreed to work alongside the federal government instead of fighting them every step of the way, and if the public did not intentionally track, harass, and interfere with legitimate law enforcement operations. Exactly, folks there are simply playing with fire. Now, in the meantime, new details about the incident still emerging, and federal officials now revealing that at the time of the tragic confrontation, the unfortunate victim of the shooting, a 37-year-old mother of three, Renee Good, she was actually working part of a collective ICE watch team that actively monitors and disrupts federal immigration enforcement efforts. Meanwhile, unruly protesters continue to clash with federal agents as Minnesota Governor Tim Walz vainly tries to keep a lid on the angry demonstrations by urging people to remain calm and honor the dead woman's memory with a day of unity. Nevertheless, some lawmakers now blaming the incompetent Walz and his fellow Democrats for making things worse. They say that he, Congresswoman Omar, and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, they're all completely delusional that the ICE agent who fired his weapon was obviously defending himself, and that by stirring the pot and riling up the crowd, they're all guilty of putting more federal officers directly in harm's way. Final thoughts, and this is the News Roundup Lowdown. Right now, the one thing that every single law-abiding, hard-working American citizen can agree on is that this week's ICE shooting in Minnesota is tragic. One person has been killed. We've all seen the graphic footage, and we all wish this had never happened. As with all law enforcement-related shootings, an investigation began shortly after the incident, and by all accounts, that investigation right now is still ongoing. This early in the game for Congresswoman Ilhan Omar and her squad member pal Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez to dive right in with very limited facts and call the federal agent a murderer. It's irresponsible and it's actionable. It's sick and it's downright dumb. Got a couple of unintelligent fools making dangerous claims without the facts to back up their ranting and their raving. By the way, acting ICE Director Todd Lyons wrongfully called those comments political rhetoric. And the way I see it, Mr. Lyons was being generous. And in fact, it's much deeper than just rhetoric. Both Omar and AOC have done everything they can to vilify ICE agents, their operation in the state of Minnesota, and their reputation nationwide, which in turn makes their missions even more complicated and that much more dangerous as well. And more on Omar, and we'll get to a real stand-up guy, Governor Tim Walz, here shortly. Madam Omar, your state has defrauded taxpayers to the tune of as much as $9 billion. You have a massive illegal immigrant problem and tons of other issues as well in your region. Now, calling an ICE agent a murderer, that will do nothing to address the crisis which your state is going through right now. You've just taken part in an epic fail.